Welcome to the Stanford Current here on KZSU 90.1. I'm your host, Anthony Sanchez, and today we'll have special guest Jason Overman. He's the youngest elected politician in the city of Berkeley at age 21. He will talk to us about youth and politics and why he believes youth are overlooked and viewed as apathetic. Later in the program, we will have Stanford sophomore Michael Merrick of the Roosevelt Institution offering his opinion on immigrant labor law and practices and the solution to the contentious issue. Now here's the news.
Last Wednesday, January 24th, the Stanford group Students Confronting Apartheid in Israel, or SCI, launched a campaign urging the University Board of Trustees to selectively divest from companies that provide military support or weaponry to Israel, support the building or maintenance of Israel's separation barrier, operate on illegally occupied land, facilitate home demolition, land confiscation, or other acts of collective punishment, engage in practices that institutionally discriminate against people of a specific race, religion, or ethnicity. The campaign is in response to the Israeli settlements in occupied Palestinian lands, the separation barrier isolating Palestinian villages, home destruction, and unfair land policies which SCI says resemble the racist policies of apartheid South Africa. The Stanford-Israeli Alliance has come out strongly against the divestment campaign. The Alliance has organized an online petition against the campaign which, according to its website, is to protest the allegation that Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, is an apartheid state, express disappointment in the introduction of inflammatory rhetoric, and to support processes that promote peace. The Alliance has also posted flyers around campus highlighting the differences between Israel and apartheid South Africa. The campaign is similar to ones previously attempted at Berkeley, the University of Michigan, Yale, Princeton, Harvard, and MIT. According to the Alliance, the campaigns have failed in each case. There is no indication that the Board of Trustees at this time will divest from the selected companies. Missing electrical engineer student Mengyao Mei Zhu was found dead last Thursday in the trunk of her own car in Santa Rosa. An autopsy revealed no outward signs of trauma, and authorities said items found in the trunk indicate the subject may have committed suicide.
It soon may be lights out for the traditional light bulb in California. Assemblyman Lloyd Levine of Van Nuys is proposing that California become the first to ban sales of an incandescent light bulb to reduce energy use and greenhouse gases. The bulbs are to be replaced by energy-efficient compact fluorescent lamps. Those are the spiral-shaped bulbs that cost more up front but save money and energy over the long haul. The Contra Costa Times has reported that in 7 years since California voters backed Las Vegas-style casinos on Indian land, gambling in California has ballooned into a $15 billion industry. Helping to inflate that balloon, according to a state commission study released Tuesday, are 1.2 million California adults who have developed significant lifetime problems related to gambling. The study suggests more than 1 in 30 adults in California face serious gambling problems. The rate is higher among youths, according to the State Office of Problem Gambling. Assemblyman Jim Beal of San Jose wants parents to be able to purchase tuition for the college class of 2030 at 2008 prices. Beal has proposed legislation to create a state-run savings program that would allow parents to prepay their children's tuition, locking in rates no matter the dips in the investment market or spikes in tuition. Undergraduate tuition and fees at the University of California system are expected to climb to $7,347 next school year under Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, an increase of nearly 400% from 20 years earlier. Google's infamous joke poking fun at President Bush has been recently neutralized and no longer shows up on his website. The joke happened when a user would enter the word failure and press the I'm feeling lucky button. The result would take the user to the White House website. Former Governor Mike Huckabee of Arkansas announced Sunday that he was forming a presidential exploratory committee, mounting an underdog campaign for the Republican nomination with a message of hope and optimism for restoring America. Mr. Huckabee, 51, is a Baptist minister who served more than 10 years as governor of Arkansas and has close ties with many Christian conservatives. He enters a race largely dominated so far by heavyweights like Senator John McCain of Arizona, former Governor Mitt Romney of Massachusetts, and former Mayor Rudolph W. Giuliani of New York. Also, Mr. Huckabee faces stiff competition for the social conservative vote, his natural base, from Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas. Delaware Senator Joseph Biden announced his candidacy for president yesterday, but has already hit a speed bump. Hoping to tout his expertise on foreign policy, Biden instead had to defend his remark that Senator Barack Obama is, quote-unquote, the first mainstream African-American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. Biden claims the remark has been taken out of context. Obama has responded that he doesn't believe Biden meant to offend. On Monday, Federal officials announced a plan to delist the gray wolf populations of the Rocky Mountain region from federal protection. The plan would remove Endangered Species Act protection for more than 5,000 wolves in the lower 48 states, placing management of the animals under state control. Conservation groups have expressed dismay and drawn a wait-and-see response from politicians and sportsmen. The Senate voted overwhelmingly on Tuesday to move ahead on a bill to increase the minimum wage. But the vote also set up a conflict with the House that is likely to stall any increase. The Senate bill includes $8.3 billion in tax breaks for small businesses that Democrats who sponsored the bill said were necessary to obtain Republican support. The House approved a simpler bill, including the wage increase but no tax breaks this month. The two bills would raise the minimum wage from $5.15 an hour to $7.25 an hour. Bowing to bipartisan pressure from lawmakers, the Justice Department announced Wednesday that it was turning over to selected members of Congress secret documents with details of the National Security Agency's eavesdropping program. The decision was made 2 weeks after Attorney General Alberto Gonzales faced senators' withering questions about why the Bush administration had refused to provide details about the legal underpinnings of the program. Bad news for the White House. Two of the senators behind dueling resolutions that threatened to split the anti-escalation vote have reportedly reached an agreement on a compromise measure they both can support. The Associated Press says that the Democratic Senator Carl Levin and Republican Senator John Warner have agreed on a measure that drops the harshest language from a resolution Levin introduced with Joe Biden and Chuck Hagel and drops wording in Warner's resolution that could have read as suggesting that the Senate supports sending some additional U.S. troops to Iraq. Combining forces, Levin and Warner have at least a chance of doing what neither could do without the other, attract the 60 votes necessary to survive the cloture vote forced by minority Republicans who oppose an anti-escalation resolution.
In international news, Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez was granted powerful decree-making powers by the nation's Congress on Wednesday. The powers are currently scheduled to expire in 18 months and apply to 11 broadly defined areas, including the economy, energy, and defense. Chavez announced that he will use these powers to further transform Venezuela into a socialist society. Critics fear that the policy concentrates too much power in Chavez's hands. A German court has issued an arrest warrant for 13 people involved in a CIA abduction team allegedly responsible for the kidnapping of Khalid al-Masri, a German citizen of Lebanese descent. Khalid was held for 5 months, during which he says he was beaten and interrogated over alleged ties to al-Qaeda. The warrant is seen as the latest in a series of challenges to the CIA's counter-terrorist actions in Europe. Iranian state radio announced that Iran is looking to Russia to help mediate a standoff with the UN Security Council over the nation's nuclear program. According to the Associated Press, the radio said Iran was looking to Russia for new proposals, such as the enrichment of uranium on Russian soil. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has repeatedly declared that Iran has a right to its nuclear program, which he maintains is strictly for civilian power. The U.S. and other European nations fear that Iran will pursue nuclear weapons in violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Activity in Iran points to a possible split on the nuclear issue between Ahmadinejad and the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini, who is in less favor of a confrontation over the issue. A second round of talks between the United States and North Korean finance officials over sanctions against North Korea recently ended. North Korea has blamed the sanctions for holding up progress on concurrent six-nation talks about its nuclear program. Their sanctions are in response to alleged illegal activities taken by North Korea, such as money laundering. Bush official John Negroponte has stated that the U.S. efforts to isolate North Korea from the international financial system can provide a bit of leverage at the six-nation nuclear talks. This has been Micah Craddy with KZSU News. Have a good week.
We'll be back after a quick break.
The Stanford Blood Center serves not only Stanford Hospital and Lucile Packard Children's Hospital, but several other local hospitals as well, and they need your help to save lives. If you are in good health and between the ages of 17 and 74, the Stanford Blood Center invites you to donate. You can even make an appointment online. All blood types are needed. For more information, please visit bloodcenter.stanford.edu. That's bloodcenter.stanford.edu. Or call 650-723-7831.
Close your eyes and imagine you're on an unspoiled beach somewhere, sunlight streaming through the palm leaves. A paradise like this isn't easy to come by, but it does still exist. Because the Nature Conservancy works locally with people like you to save precious places around the world, forever. That way, closing your eyes will never be the only way to get there. I'm Paul Newman. Help save the last great places.
Visit the Nature Conservancy at nature.org. Nature.org.
Welcome back to the Stanford Current here on KZSU 90.1. I'm your host, Anthony Sanchez. Coming up, we will hear an interview from Jason Overman, brought to you by the Roosevelt Institution, the nation's first student-run think tank dedicated to extending student ideas into the public discourse. Jason Overman is a senior at UC Berkeley and the youngest elected official in Berkeley as a rent board commissioner. He also ran a campaign in the November election for city council in a town where students make up more than a quarter of the population, yet have no representation on the council. Here's the interview. I'm here in the studio with Jason Overman, who is a rent stabilization board member from the city of Berkeley. And I have a few questions for you, Jason. How are you doing?
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I am doing splendid. Okay, so my first question is that in 2004, you were elected to the Rent Stabilization Board at the tender age of 19. Usually the conventional wisdom is that young people are apathetic and rarely vote and let alone run for office. So my question to you is, why did you run for office at such a young age? Or let me say it again. Why did you run for office at such a young age, and why have you chosen politics?
Well, Anthony, first of all, let me thank you for the opportunity of being on your show, and it's definitely an honor to be here tonight. You know, the answer to your question is interesting, I think, because I was actually born and raised in Washington, D.C., and so I was kind of raised in the political epicenter of the world. And I was raised by parents who taught me throughout my childhood that when you're given any amount of privilege or opportunity in this world, that you should spend your life doing your best to give that opportunity back to those who weren't as fortunate. And so that's sort of what the paradigm I was raised with throughout my life. And I think that as I grew older, I living in Washington, D.C., I interned on Capitol Hill for, Senator Ted Kennedy, and I came off to college and I sort of wanted to come and change the world. And I saw politics as sort of a way to get engaged and to give power to those who, have not been heard, to give a voice to those who have been left out of the process. And that's why I chose politics, because I think that we can do an incredible amount to level the playing field and to give opportunity to those who weren't fortunate enough to have some of the privileges that we've been given.
This last year, 2006, in November, you actually had a campaign. You were a candidate for city council, and you ran against an incumbent who outspent you 4-1.
That's right.
So with what many would say are clearly insurmountable odds against you, what made you run in that particular race?
It's sort of funny that you asked that, because most people at the onset of the campaign, when we were first starting to talk about, is this something we should do, and is this something worth trying? There were a whole ton of people who said, you're never going to win. You don't have a chance. So why are you going to waste your time? And as it turns out, the incumbent that I ran against did outspend me 4-1. But what it came down to for me was that the community came out and said, the incumbent has not represented us well in the last 4 years, and we need somebody to stand up and defend us, to defend our values, and to protect our community. And that the incumbent hasn't done, really a good job of doing that. And, many members of the community stood up and said, Jason, we want you to run. We had a meeting where there was a sort of a diverse coalition of different folks got together, senior citizens, environmentalists, neighborhood activists, students, tenants, homeowners, all sorts of different folks from the community, and they said, we want you to stand up against this council member who has failed to recognize our needs. And for me, that was more important than the thought of possibly not winning. Is standing up for those people and for those values and for what I believed in. And I'm glad that we didn't let failure stare us down. I'm glad that we tried, because I think that says a lot more when you try something, that you know that there's a good chance you won't succeed, but you try it anyway.
So speaking about your city council run, you were running in a city where nearly a third of the population is student, yet it has not had student representation on the council since the 80s. So one of the reasons cited is that students are very apathetic. So what does your campaign do to inspire and engage the youth?
We talk about this issue a lot in the media, nationally, locally. We talk about this, why don't young people, why are 18 to 25-year-olds the least, the population that votes the least in our country? And I firmly believe that it's because young people aren't given people to vote for, that a lot of candidates, don't speak to the issues of the youth because they know that the youth won't vote. And so the youth don't vote because they don't see any candidates who are speaking to their issues. It's sort of this cycle, this self-fulfilling prophecy. You say, well, I'm, never going to get any votes from young people, so I'm not going to talk about young people issues, and the reverse. And so we stood up and we said, we want to try to be a campaign that is about bringing the entire community together, a large portion of which is students. So we developed a message that was not just for students or for senior citizens or for tenants or for homeowners. We tried to develop a message that was, by and large, above all, a message of unity, of trying to bring everybody together. There's been sort of these factions, especially in local politics, where you have one group, they think their interests are contrary to the interests of another group, when in fact I believe that we all share more in common than we hold as differences with one another. And I think that we really tried to bring forth a message that we can work together, these different communities, and that our interests really are the same. And so we really tried to carry that message throughout the campaign. In specific, to trying to reach out to youth, I stood on campus for a couple hours a day. I just stopped and talked to whoever wanted to have a conversation about what they think should be done in our community. I went and spoke to the members of different sororities and fraternities, and we tried to get out there and reach out to the student community and to young people the way that traditional politicians haven't done in the past. And so I think that we need to do more of that. We need to inspire more people in politics to do that kind of reaching out. And until more people really start reaching out to young people are going to still feel disenfranchised.
Your whole experience running for city council this last November, what would you say you learned from that whole experience?
Well, it's funny because the first thing that comes to my mind is the sheer power of incumbency. In my studies of political science in college, I hear all the time how powerful, this power of incumbency is. If you've been in office, you're going to stay in office. Barring some sort of scandal, which there have been a lot of in Washington, but barring some sort of big scandal that will tarnish a reputation, incumbents can get away with a lot of things, and that's sort of disheartening to think about. But it's, I think, an unfortunate reality in politics that a lot of times incumbent politicians are given a free pass for the mistakes they've made, just because they're so insulated and inoculated against any kind of political challenge, because their names are well known and so forth. And so this campaign, for sure, if nothing else, taught me that the power of incumbency is real. But it also taught me that even when you're going against the grain, and even when you're challenging, a candidate who's very difficult to beat because they've been an incumbent, you can still, I think, with a message of hope and a message of unity, you can inspire people to join your effort if you're authentic and if you're passionate about the things that you care about, and if you really mean what you say, and you reach out to people and you say, you haven't been listened to, and that's going to change, because I think it's important that we really do try to reach out and bring people together. Above all, partisan politics are, of course, about values and about choosing a course and a direction for our country and for our cities and our communities. But above all, we've got to get out the message that if we work together, we can work through our differences, and we can bring forth a sort of a common vision where everybody can be a part and everybody can take part in our democracy.
All right, so my last question is, do you have any advice for other young individuals that may be out there that may be considering running for office or dedicating themselves to public service? What would you say to them?
Do it. And that's my advice. If you care about something and you want to get involved, don't let anybody tell you that you're too young or that you're too anything. You look at the national political landscape and you have Hillary Clinton. People are saying, we're not ready for a woman president, and we have Barack Obama, and people are saying we're not ready for a black president. And, I was running for city council, and people said the city won't elect a student city council member. Don't let anybody tell you those things, and don't let that stop you. If you have passion and you have dedication for the things you care about, do it anyway. When I was elected to the Rent Stabilization Board in the city of Berkeley, I was 19 years old, the youngest person to ever be elected to the city of to a post in the city of Berkeley. And people said, you're too young. But the voters spoke, and I think that we shouldn't let ourselves be discouraged by people who are going to be naysayers. Those sorts of people will always exist, and I think that if there are young individuals out there listening, or who want to speak out and to make a difference in our society, whether it's through public office or community service or business or working in labor or any method they choose, I'd say do it. Go for it and follow your heart, because as cheesy as it sounds, you shouldn't let anybody tell you that you can't do it.
Well, Jason, I want to thank you for coming on to my show.
Thank you, Anthony.
And that is it. Now we'll be hearing from Stanford sophomore Michael Merrick from the Roosevelt Institution, offering an editorial on the issue of immigrant labor.
On December 15th, the Houston Chronicle reported that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents raided 6 meatpacking plants and arrested 1,300 workers, effectively halting the operations of the plant. Over Labor Day weekend, the occurrence repeated itself in Stillmore, Georgia, at the Kreider chicken plant. In both cases, companies had complied with IC regulations as best they could, paying minimum wage or above, and withholding Social Security. In the sectors of the economy that employ primarily immigrants, an unspoken code exists that companies require Social Security cards or other acceptable forms of identification as specified by the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act, but do not verify them. Since the enactment of the Immigration Reform and Control Act, or IRCA, the ICE has largely looked the other way with reference to falsified identification, investigating companies only in rare cases. As a result, billions of dollars have been paid to no-match Social Security accounts that will never be paid back out to immigrants, a proverbial free lunch for Americans. Employers have been reluctant to verify for fear of violating the discrimination laws also outlined in the IRCA. The IRCA is now being enforced arbitrarily, forcing thousands out of work. These immigrants, if illegal, will in most cases not be deported. They will hide from the ICE until sufficient time has passed and simply seek out another job. If they are smart, they will take a job from an employer who does not engage in legitimate labor practices. Immigrants who find these cash operators will be paid in cash, and no Social Security will be withheld. They will not even see an I-9. In another scenario, immigrants will simply be misclassified as independent contractors on the I-9, and no tax will be withheld. As a result of both illegal labor practices, those of cash operators and employers who misclassify, the U.S. Treasury is losing billions of dollars every year. The ICE crackdown on employers who closest follow the IRCA has only exacerbated the problem, driving more and more immigrants to the underground economy of cash operators and misclassifiers. In an effort to fix the immigration problem by targeting legitimate employers, the ICE aids an underground economy that is sucking our country dry. Prosecuting those who most closely follow the law has never been a solution to lawlessness. The government needs to work with employers to find a solution. America needs to offer a path for immigrant workers to obtain legal work status so that they can be taxed, a way to bring underground workers out into the light. To meet projected employment needs over the next decade, America also needs a visa system that will stop illegal immigration by allowing immigrants to enter the country legally and meet growing labor demands. When immigrants have legal work status, they are a boon to the economy. They create new jobs and take jobs undesirable to the average American. America will benefit from immigration only when it becomes lawful. Thank you.
That concludes our show today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed producing it. Tune in next week here on KZSU 90.1 at 4:30. We will have a special guest, J.L. Myrick, who is the founder of Strong, Standing to Represent Our Next Generation, a group aimed at increasing youth awareness and participation. Interested in the Stanford Current? Have something you want to say? Is there something you think we should cover? We encourage our listeners to send us emails, and we enjoy hearing from you. Email us at news@kzsu.org. Once again, that's news@kzsu.org. Thanks once again for tuning into the Stanford Current here on KZSU 90.1. Have a great week.
Boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. I say, boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. You got me doing funny things like a clown. Just look at me. When you wear your high-hole boots with your hip hugger suit, it's alright. You're out of sight. And you wear that cute mini skirt with your brother's sloppy shirt. I admit it, girl, that I can't dig it. You know, I say, boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. I say, boogum now, baby, you're casting your spell on me. You got me doing funny things like a clown. Just look at me. When you wear your bell-bottom pants, I just stand there in a trance. I can't move. You're in the groove. Would you believe, little girl, that I'm crazy about you? Now go now with your bad self. Style, girl, that show is wild. And you wear that cute trench coat, and you're standing and posing. You got soul, you got too much soul. I just said, took out the boo, now casting your spell on